and welcome to the Doofcast, the official variety podcast of doofmedia.com. My name is Princess Scott Daly, and
by the honor of Grayskull, I'm Free-Ra.
Matt.
Sorry, I'm Matt Freeman.
This week on the show, we're doing another one of our patron-produced episodes. For those of you that don't know, folks that pledge to us at the Doof Warrior level or above on Patreon, that's patreon.com/doofmedia, get to select a movie, short story, or in this case, a TV show for us to do a topic on. This week, our longtime patron, Kyakan, asked us to take a look at the 2008 cartoon, She-Ra and the Princess. Is the Princesses of Power? Princesses of Power. So we are going to be talking all about season 1 of that show, only season 1, and we will only be spoiling the first season. So, because that's all we watched.
Yeah.
And then Apple TV Plus is out, Matt, and I spent my weekend for some reason watching the first episode of the 4 big released shows on that platform, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about them, and then we're going to muse about what's Apple doing.
Yeah. Well, thanks for saving me from having to watch all that TV, Scott.
You're welcome. All right, let's get right into it, and let's talk about She-Ra.
Lord Hordak has been watching you, Adora. He thinks you are a fine candidate for Force Captain.
You've been promoted?
Your mission is to destroy the Princess's rebellion.
This is what I've been working for my entire life. I wonder what's even outside the fright zone. We're gonna see the world and conquer it. Ketra, slow down!
Adora.
Ketra?
Our planet needs you. Cool. The sword has chosen you. The time has come for your destiny.
So Matt, we have to set the stage here a little bit.
Okay.
What is She-Ra and the Princesses of Power?
I don't know. I mean, basically, the character of She-Ra, you and I were just with genuine interest looking up all the backstory of this show and the He-Man universe. So She-Ra as a character is the sibling of He-Man. He-Man was a toy commercial in the 80s.
Yeah. Yep. It was in the middle of the 80s where they got really big into basically using cheaply made cartoons to sell toys was the big thing. That's like Transformers. He-Man was another big one. And so She-Ra was its own show that ran alongside He-Man. But you and I don't have any history in any of this stuff.
I didn't even know that She-Ra was its own show back in the day. I thought this is one of those things where everything in 2019 has to be incorporating some existing intellectual property. And so this showrunner, Noelle Stevenson, had said, all right, I'll pick She-Ra and then I'll make it into my own thing. And tell a original story that I have no idea whether this has anything to do with the original She-Ra or not. I suspect maybe kind of.
I pulled up a list of characters, and it appears that a lot of the characters are the same. Like, there's a Glimmer, there's a Bow, there's a Swiftwind. So all the character names are the same.
Okay.
There's a Catra. But I have no idea. I have no idea of the story. It could be, but that is one of the things we are definitely not doing this week is going to be talking about the differences between the 80s version and this version, because that is just not, it's not our history. It's not our background with this. My only experience with He-Man in my entire life up until I think maybe college was in Ghostbusters 2 when they go to the birthday party to sing for the little kids. And the little kids are mad that they're the Ghostbusters and not He-Man. That's all I knew about He-Man.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I never watched the cartoon. I never saw the movie.
There was the live action movie Masters of the Universe that starred Courtney Cox, and I have seen that movie. But that is it takes place in our world where like He-Man and some of his friends get transported to our world. And Skeletor's there too. I don't know if that counts as knowing things about He-Man, but She-Ra was not in it. So when it comes to this character in this world, don't know anything.
Yeah. which lends credence to my theory that this is basically this showrunner wanted to tell a particular kind of story and maybe found something that fit it. I don't know. It's hard for me to believe that someone was like, you know what story really needs to be told is the She-Ra story. Like I think we'll get into it, but like the backstory of this is very like the in-world backstory is very interesting.
Yeah.
Let's talk about 2018 She-Ra though.
Yeah. I mean, I think you are correct in that Noelle Stevenson like wanted to like this is a show designed for children. It is playing on Netflix, but it is like a TV 7, right? So 7-year-olds or higher. It is designed for little girls, and we're going to talk about enjoying TV that is not designed for you. So I'm not telling everyone out there that if you're not a 7-year-old girl and you like this, that you're wrong. I'm not saying that, but it was going for a younger audience, and it was trying to do this, very 21st century kind of very inclusive female empowerment type of story. And I think it succeeds at that. I had, like I said, I went into this not knowing what it was, and I ended up quite enjoying a lot of what the show was doing.
Me too. Let's say that off the bat. Because I think it can feel pandering when something is basically making its purpose to be, this is going to be inclusive and female empowering and all that. Like you can definitely do that wrong. You can do that in a way where it's just like, this is just a vehicle for this idea and there's no substance to it. But this actually has quite a lot of substance. There's a lot of thought put into the details. I think the music is really great. The writing is about as good as you are going to get for something that's kind of aimed at this age bracket. The character, the voice acting is spot on. It's pretty much perfect, actually.
Yeah, I have a lot to say about that.
Yeah.
There's characters, there's actors I recognized in here, and I was like, yes.
Yeah, and I don't mean to blow by all these things. We can go back and talk about each of these individually. I'm just trying to give the sense that like it's well put together. There's a lot of attention to detail, and if I nitpick certain things, it's more like, well, I feel like they could have done a better job on this aspect. But that's not to say that I don't think there's anything so bad about it that it like ruins it.
Yeah.
But speaking of, you were talking about the female empowerment angle. I just thought I was kind of immediately tickled by the idea that it's the princesses of power, and each of these princesses is like a demigod. And I just thought it was fun that they're sort of taking back the phrase princess and saying like now a princess is like a badass magical warrior queen, like a Power Ranger or an X-Man or something. And I thought that was fun.
Yeah, I like that a lot. That was a fun, and it's like when you first hear it, you're not prepared for that, so you're just like, they're talking about the princesses. I mean, even the title, the princesses of power. You're like, what does that mean? But yeah, it is kind of this superhero label that we're putting on these things. I think we're going to be making a lot of comparisons to Avatar in this episode, because I think a lot of what the show is doing is playing along similar things. And I don't mean that in a way that is like, this show decided I'm going to copy Avatar. I mean that in a way where like in a Campbellian way in which like all stories are the same story, and when you reduce a story to like this that is trying to do this like very kind of mythological hero's journey type of thing, you're just gonna hit a lot of the same beats, because
Definitely.
That's just like a truism of humanity. And so yeah, I mean this has a lot of the same elements, and it's remixing them, like it's doing different things with them. It's not the same show, but
sure.
The princesses are definitely like the airbenders of this world, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can nail it down pretty well. Like both main characters have a different state they can go into that's more powerful. Mm-hmm. Both characters sort of need to go to various locations over time to corral their power. In Aang's case, he's trying to learn all the bending techniques, but in Adora's case, she's trying to recruit all of the princesses. Yeah. Did we mention we only watched the first season?
Yes.
We did. Yeah. So that's basically the arc of season 1 is recruiting all these princesses, making a princesses super team. And then there's the all is lost moment where they all give up on it. And then at the end of the season, they've all come back together, and I guess won a temporary victory.
Yeah,
presumably.
And then you have the two sidekick characters, one of which is also a bender,
and one is not,
and one is not, and he's a hunter, and he's kind of a goofy comedic relief character, and he's the heart of the party. And in this case, you can tell because he wears a heart on his chest. And then you have all your other side characters. You have the antagonist on the other team. In this case, it's doing the reverse Avatar, where they were friends at first and then become enemies. Whereas Zuko started off enemies and then eventually became friends. I guess spoiler for Avatar.
Yeah, and I like this. I really like the character of Catra.
Yeah.
I think that's maybe the strongest part of the show is Catra specifically, and Catra and Adora's relationship.
I think we're gonna maybe zoom in on this a little bit later, but I think the show really, I was enjoying it fine. And then I believe it's the 11th episode where Adora and Catra are kind of trapped together in the Beacon City place. I forget what it's called. That's basically when they have their big falling out moment of this part of the series. And that is when I officially was like, okay, I see what you're doing in this relationship very clearly now. I like this. This is very interesting how you're exploring the complexities of this relationship, and I'm totally in on it. And that's when the show really started clicking. So like I think the third act of this first season, the show, I was like, damn, like you've really taken it up a notch, and I'm really enjoying it. And I think it's one of those things that's like a necessary evil of this kind of storytelling, where most of this first season is introducing us to characters. Like we have to meet all the different princesses. We have to get to know them a little bit. We kind of have an episode that focuses a little bit on each one of them, and then we can play it off. And that's always the most interesting part. And I liked how the season wrapped up. I really did.
Yeah. I really enjoyed, one of my favorite elements, I think, was kind of the slowly building background element of, oh, there's actually a really well thought out like science fiction backstory plot to this. Like by the end of the season, you're like, oh my God, like this planet was colonized by spacefaring like people with extremely high technology, and then they fit the planet with this like defensive matrix, which they then encoded into a magic sword, which is not actually magic, it's all technology, and then they like teleported it to a hidden pocket dimension to protect it because there's no stars anymore. I'm like, oh my God, this is so fun. I love this. I mean, that's like a detail you almost could miss, the fact that they're like, there's no stars because the planet is not in space anymore, or something like that. And there's like, if you told me all that at the beginning of the show, you know, like the first episode, I'd be like, what are you talking about? This is just a silly riff on She-Ra, but like that's all in there, and it's all very cleverly built up. And I enjoyed that a lot, even, you know, without having to say like I enjoyed it for a kid's show. Like I actually enjoyed it just purely how it was set up and doled out slowly, and I like the idea of it.
Yeah, and I mean, I think this is something that was true to the original story as well, but I like the idea of, like, I want to kind of spend a lot of time on Adora because she's a great character, and I like her a lot. And I think sometimes these shows, and we've talked about this before, but sometimes these shows have like protagonist syndrome for their main character, where they're just not the most interesting of their characters because they have to abide by like the rules of protagonism. But Adora is this really fascinating character, and the structure of starting her out on the bad guy side, which is not like, this is not like a new concept in storytelling, right? Like the main character starting out on the wrong side, realizing that it's the wrong side, and then switching sides is an archetypal storytelling technique. But I really like what it does here because it allows the show to really focus on that the core like emotional beat of the story is that friendship with Catra, with I forget her name, but the lady that raised her, and Shadow Weaver, right? Yeah. That raised her, and through her, you know, cruelty, but also specific cruelty, it really develops that relationship between the two girls. I thought that was really interesting, and it's I think a testament to the writing that I am sitting here fully aware that this is something that hundreds upon hundreds of stories have done, but it felt fresh. It felt new.
Definitely.
Like, I mean, the name of the bad guys are the Horde,
The evil horde.
and they're in the fright zone. So
Yeah.
like the idea, like it's so patently obvious. Like in the first 5 seconds, they're like, oh, these are the bad guys.
Yeah. I think my two favorite lines, one of them was her being incredulous that they're the bad guys, and then the sidekick saying, "You're called the evil horde." Yeah. And then the other line was in the middle of the pirate guy's spiel when he says that he made the 60-click run in 20 clicks. Mm-hmm. I was like, that's good. That's a good one.
It's a great Star Wars burn.
Yeah. But yeah, I thought the villain, you literally just said it. Shadow Weaver. I thought she was great. The higher up villain, he's just kind of a cipher. We don't know enough about him for him to really be scary yet. But I thought Shadow Weaver was
Hordak.
Hordak, yeah.
Yeah, and I didn't remember that name. It's on this spreadsheet I'm looking at right now. So, yeah, he's just kind of there. And Shadow Weaver, like, is just really. I love that she's a really complex character too, and that, like, yes, she's bad. Obviously, she's bad, but like, you see this person who's like struggling to be relevant, and like, it does a very good job of painting these characters. We have, I think, like, Scorpia is one of my favorite characters in the show, and she just came out of nowhere, and I was like, just like, oh, she's a scorpion lady.
Yeah.
And I kind of love how casual the show is about just the weirdness of the world, right? Like, Catra is like this part cat thing.
Yeah.
Scorpia, like, literally has scorpion claws and a stingy tail.
Yeah.
Is it who's the scientist one? Entrapta?
Yeah, I was just gonna look that up. I think it is Entrapta, yeah, because she's a character I wanted to talk about. Definitely.
Oh yeah, what they do with her is super interesting.
Because she's like this Frankenstein character. She's the classic archetype of the mad scientist, who's more interested in learning and understanding and discovery than is good for her. She doesn't really have any moral sense. Mm-hmm. And I was kind of surprised, actually. I was a little bit grumpy about it at first. I was like, oh, so you're just saying that smart people are amoral? And then I was like, no, I don't really think that's it. I think it's just like she's probably going to have her own kind of redemption point where she realizes that what she's done has been harmful, because she's not doing it maliciously. She doesn't even want like power. She just wants to understand. And she doesn't think about the consequences of it, I think.
And I was surprised that didn't play out faster. Like, so, I mean, the story sets up this is their big final, like, first team up moment, right? Where they have to go save Glitter, who's been captured after the princess ball, which is perfect. So they all have to go save Glitter, and they leave her. If I have one critique about the show, that moment was weird to me. So,
okay.
So they leave her and she stays behind. And then they're like, oh, she's dead. And I was like, wait.
Yeah.
Why do you think that?
I thought that the way the scene was designed was there was going to be an imminent explosion that was going to kill everyone in that room. And she closed the door so that everyone else could escape. And then And then the explosion would have killed her, and then they were like, "Oh, she's dead." But we don't even see how she escaped, actually.
Yeah, I thought that was a little weird. And I agree that was supposed to be the setup, and I just, like, that connection didn't happen to me. And then she's just alive, and it's like, oh, okay. But yeah, I mean, like, they leave her behind, and then Catra totally plays off of that. And I expected it to be like this momentary thing where, like, she's tricked into helping them, and then is going to realize the evilness of what they're doing. And I think that's coming. I think you're right that that's coming. But the climax of this season is a crisis caused by her.
Yeah.
It's her messing with the stuff. It's her doing this. And you're right. She is completely unaware. Like, she doesn't even seem to understand what's happening to the rest of the world. It is really interesting that they were willing to do this with this character. Like, I'm looking at the character list, and she is listed as a member of the evil horde. Like, that's just where it lists her.
Yeah.
So we'll see what they're gonna do with her.
Right.
But I found that really interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I bought the idea that Catra was like, that they went out of their way to come back for this other character, but they're gonna leave you. And they've abandoned you. And I mean, I guess I get the hang up there, but it didn't bother me at the time. I mean, now that you're pointing it out, I guess I can see the issue with it. But if it didn't bother me at the time, I'm inclined to let it slide.
I don't mind the writing there. I just think the way in which they dramatized the moment of death and reveal of still being alive just didn't connect for me.
Well, so this to me struck me as one of these times. Reminds me of in Avatar when like they kept using ridiculous euphemisms for death or kill because it's a kids show. You're not supposed to say you have to go kill that guy. Mm-hmm. So they were kind of going out of their way to never say entrapped is dead. Like I actually noticed that they maybe used the word death or kill like once or twice ever.
Yeah, and I didn't notice, but yeah.
So stuff like that, like they're just avoiding showing more than implying, and that results in some kind of wobbly storytelling, I think.
Sure, yeah. I mean, it's just like, that you've just narrowed your lane a little bit to a point where like, okay, how do we do this? How do we show this? Yeah. I get that. I get that. So Entrapped is awesome character. I mean, I think we can probably stand to talk about Adora a bit more specifically. Like, sure,
I mean, you said, it's kind of a classic, it's kind of an archetype, but it is fresh, and it reminded me a bit of like the Captain Marvel story because that's a movie that I've watched recently because perhaps unsurprisingly that story also appeals to young girls. But like there's something genuine about Adora that isn't always there in this sort of storyline. You buy her struggle in a way where like she is this kind of brave, hard warrior. Like I don't know. It's interesting because she's consistently brave and self-sacrificing and heroic and admirable. But she still struggles with things, and it's just that the things she struggles with are never like, is she going to be brave enough to win this time? It's stuff like her relationship with Catra. It's stuff like, is she going to be able to lead the other princesses or persuade them? Or it's interesting how the storytelling manages to find drama in surprising angles on her character while still letting her be this completely awesome, superhero. I really like it.
I like it too. It does not lean too heavily into the chosen one drama, right?
Yes.
Like there's a lot of baked in drama around the chosen one thing of like, oh my God, this great responsibility has been thrust on me and I don't know if I have the power to take it on. She is very much a type of character who just dives into that responsibility. If anything, her frustrations are like, I don't understand how this works. Like, I want to be this person, and I just don't. Like, she struggles with healing. Like the late arc is that she goes out to get training because Glimmer is hurt and she needs to heal her friend. And it's not like the mantle of this is too much to bear. It's just, I need to figure out what to do. Just it's the responsibility she bears, but the direction to take that responsibility in is where she struggles.
Yeah, I think you're right. There's not really a refusing the call plot beat for her. Right. It's and I kind of like that. Like if there had been a refusing the call moment, I think it would have felt inauthentic.
Yeah. Because a lot of the early part of her arc is this realization that these people that she's been a part of the whole time are the bad guys. And so like, not only do you learn that you've been lied to your entire life, but here this great power has been thrust into your hands. And so now you have the opportunity to make make it right. And I mean, yeah, like I think a lot of character motivation is sometimes driven by guilt, and I think early on her motivation is definitely driven by guilt and maybe this feeling of betrayal from those people. And like this great conflict. I think you're right. Like a lot of her conflicts are interpersonal, right?
Yeah.
Like early on in the season, it's, do I belong here? Like all these people hate me. They're uncomfortable around me. Like really, the 3-man band is the only, like, Bo and Glimmer are the only ones that really like me. Glimmer's mom doesn't. Nobody in this town does. Nobody trusts me. And like this needing to earn it.
Yeah.
And that transforms to dealing with Catra. That transforms to, God, I mean, like the final episode, she almost loses, right? Like it's this really emotional, that final episode 13 was emotional. She's like beaten, surrounded. It's over.
Yeah. Yeah, that was great. Yeah. I mean, I like the kind of more secondary character traits, like the fact that she is this badass warrior who like can't fall asleep on the big comfy bed because she was raised in like a barracks basically. And like as the show goes on, she becomes more and more comfortable in the palace and more and more comfortable with her friends. But every once in a while, you still see a glimmer of that personality show through. And I just feel like that's really good character writing. And I think that if Adora wasn't such a strong anchor for the show, then the whole thing would not work nearly as well. But between the writing and the voice acting, it just really works for me.
Yeah, and I mean, I really appreciate, like, we learn, and this is more focused on Catra, because we learned that like Adora has been lifted up the entire time as like the golden child amongst the Horde. And I like that. I like that to defining Catra, who I want to spend some time talking about. But it also relates to Adora and how like she's very used to being the one that is like showered with attention and praise, and then goes through this transformation where suddenly she's surrounded by people that don't really like her and don't really trust her, and she's got to earn that all over again. They're not as freely giving it as before. And I think that's an interesting angle to explore with her as well. I liked that. Yeah,
I agree. I guess I want to talk about the music for a second.
Sure, go for it.
That's something we often forget to talk about, because it's a background element, right? But it matters. And so, I mean, I think the intro music is fun.
It's banging. It's banging. Yeah. I didn't skip it once. Not once.
I definitely did, but I didn't mind. I didn't mind listening to it. I'll put it that way. That's high praise. Okay.
Here's its strength. It's short as hell.
Yeah, that's true.
It's good and it's short. It jumps in there and then it goes away.
Yeah.
And you start the episode.
But like the ambient music, the background music, the dramatic music is just really good. Like it's got particular themes that I could pick out over the course of the show, like ancient technology mystery theme and a She-Ra theme, and I think there's a Catra theme. But like it all works. It all supports it. It's not distracting, but it's well done. It's not simplistic. Like I think if you just listen to the music, you'd be not that I've done this, but I feel like there's enough to it that you could just kind of listen to the music and enjoy it. So that's that's one of those things where it's good attention to detail.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I mean, this is not to simplify things a little bit, but like they've spent time on this and they made it good. I mean, this is a DreamWorks production. So they're a big company, but this is a Netflix television show, and they spent time on stuff like the music, and I think the animation looks pretty good as well.
Yeah, I think it looks pretty good. The only area of the animation, this is maybe my biggest like you could have done a better job area, is actually like the fighting. It just does almost nothing for me generally. Like it's sort of like rookie level mistakes of, okay, where is everyone in space and what are their capabilities? Like, I mean, I hate to compare it to Avatar again, but like every fight scene in Avatar, it's extremely clear where everyone is and what they're doing and what they can do and what they can't do. And in this show, you just kind of have, if She-Ra is on the scene, then she can just jump arbitrarily far. Sword can just kind of cut through whatever. Nobody ever actually gets hurt though. And it's just kind of weightless. I think that's it. The action is pretty weightless, and even that last episode, I think that it works dramatically, but in a sense of like the dynamics of the scene, you're like, where are they? How many of them are there? Like you're just sort of trying to fill in a picture of what's happening in the scene, and the animation is not really helping you. It
certainly seemed like the entire city was guarded by 3 people.
Yes.
It was She-Ra, it was Bo, and it was Glimmer, while Angela, the queen, was protecting the stone thingy. And there was nobody else.
Right. And there's between 10 and 700 tanks attacking.
Right.
Over an area that's either about the size of a soccer field or the size of Lake Erie. Hard to tell. Mm-hmm. So these are, like, honestly, in the final analysis, pretty minor complaints, because despite the fact that I was aware of all of this while I was watching it, I was actually just paying attention to the character drama.
Right.
Which is clear enough. So it doesn't really matter that you couldn't tell where they were physically in the space.
And I agree, and that the rules aren't as well defined, like, because the character dramatic moments land, like the princesses show up, right, and they just defeat everything, and you're like, whoa, like, these are really, like, what is the limit on Perfuma's plant power? I don't know,
right?
But like, that doesn't matter, because the importance dramatically of the moment is they have returned, that we had given up on this rebellion because we failed the first time and the alliance had been separated, but you called the beacon and they actually came, and that's the dramatic moment. So like the tension of that moment has already dissipated as soon as they show up, and the actual, like, going through the motions of cleaning up the rest of the battle don't matter dramatically. Like, you have to do them. And so I'm okay with that feeling a little floaty, as you said, but I think you're right. I think the reason why I like the show is that it still hits those dramatic beats even amongst the combat that I don't really love.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm basically the same. Like, I can definitely appreciate a well animated combat scene, but it only matters if you care about the characters.
Yeah, and
this kind of demonstrates that if you care about the characters, I'll cut you some slack on the combat. Like,
sure.
Yeah.
And furthermore, talking about the animation, like, kind of back to our previous conversation about representation, this is one thing that I think the show does a really very quietly a great job of, is that each character has a different body type. They look unique. They're different. Not even just body type. Like, there's different races. Everyone looks different. Like, Scorpio is a different shaped human being than Catra, than Adora, than Glimmer. Each one of these people looks different, and like, the show doesn't draw your attention to it. It's not like, look at us, look what we're doing here. You see, aren't we being great? It just does it. It's just, and that's how the show handles the representation across the board, because we have these 2 women that are obviously in a relationship, and it doesn't call attention. And this is on my mind specifically because I saw Terminator Dark Fate last weekend, which is a movie a lot of people liked, and there was certainly parts of it that I liked too, but it is very much a movie that wants you to know how woke it's being. And it's like calling attention to itself. It's like, look what we're doing. Isn't this great? Look at the 2019 of what we're doing here. Whereas this, I think, is going beyond that in representation and empowerment, but it's just doing it. And it's like, we're just going to do this. And like, I haven't watched the rest of the seasons, but as I understand, there's a non-binary character that joins the show, and I expect that they're going to do the same thing. We're just like, oh, look, there's a character, their representation, we're done. And I think it's really wonderful. Like, you just treat it as, these are just characters, and they look like you, and great, and we're done.
Yeah, it's all very understated. I mean, even the protagonist, which I mean, if you look at the old She-Ra, sort of like classically beautiful and busty.
Is the a very 80s version of women, certainly.
Whereas Adora is like muscular, especially when she's in She-Ra form. She's like she's cut actually.
She is cut. Her arms, man. Those are some buff arms.
Yeah. But even that it's not. It's just like, this is what we're doing. We're not drawing attention to it.
Right.
It just is. She's a huge, giant, awesome warrior. Of course, she has muscles.
Yeah, I love the detail, and this is probably something that's carried over from He-Man and She-Ra. But I love the detail of her just being like 7 feet tall when she's in that form. She's just taller.
Yeah.
And there's no reason you had to do that. Like, you could have just done the Sailor Moon-esque change, which they do. And I find those moments in shows hilarious when they do like this big dramatic like change form thing. But yeah, I mean, she is literally just a giantess. She's like an Amazonian woman. And, it's cool. And I love all the designs. Like I like the detail of Glimmer's hair. Just having the sparkles in it, I think, is really good. I like all the costuming, all the designs of all the characters are really interesting and unique and different. And I was just a big fan of the art direction across the board of the show.
I definitely like, I just complained about the action not making a lot of sense, but certain things like the mechanics of Glimmer's power I thought were pretty fun. Like, you're rarely are you yelling at the screen like Glimmer should be teleporting in this situation. Usually if there's an opportunity for her to use her power, then she's using it. That is the kind of thing that would break me out of the show, and so I'm glad that they did that right, in my opinion.
Well, and I loved the moments where she was like infected and sick and then lost that power. I mean, just like the attention to detail with stuff like, well, her bed is floating in the middle of her room because she's never had to think about that before. And now it's like, why did I put my bed so high? I just like little moments like that where they like, it's not like they're reaching for the joke. They just like find the joke in the scene, in this situation. I think works really well. Sure.
Stuff like that. Like they didn't give you like an extra half second to appreciate the joke. It just, I guess what I'm saying is I enjoy the approach to humor where they're not mugging for the camera with every attempted joke. It's just a constant kind of light background enjoyability quotient.
Sure. I mean, Scorpia is like the most hilarious character in the show.
Oh yes.
And it's literally just like there. And it like you said, it's not calling attention to itself. She's just there like commenting in the background about things. And it's so funny that she's on the bad guy's side because she's just like, yeah, my family surrendered to the Horde when they first got here, and so I'm on their side.
I was never really accepted by the good princesses, and I just, I like the idea that all of the princesses have kind of retreated into their own kingdoms out of fear, basically, and her job is to bring them back together for this. And then there's the big failure where they think they've lost Entrapta. And overall, I think it's really well put together. I think maybe this is because I watched it so quickly. Like I binged it pretty aggressively. I did feel like there was maybe some filler that could have been trimmed, but not too bad, really. All things considered.
I mean, one of the things that I kind of agree with you is that like the overall structural arc of this season, like I keep comparing it to Avatar, and that's not fair. Like, it's not fair to compare this to Avatar. Avatar is one of the best shows ever. It's an unfair comparison. But one of the things that I really liked, and one of the things I remember talking to you guys about when we first watched that first season, is just like the overall structural design of the season and how it just felt like it was planned out and organized. And this one is really just kind of like, okay, we have all these different princesses, so we're going to do like the princess of the week structure at the beginning, and then that's going to fall apart eventually, and then we're going to do our climax. And I do agree that there's some filler in there, and the episodic nature of the show is not quite as tight. Like it's more in line with modern day streaming shows, which is where it's just really like a long movie and less of like individual episodes. I think I will say with the Princess of the Week things, this show does have moments where like episodes matter, but definitely less than like an Avatar type thing.
I mean, really, I just skimmed through the episode list, and I think there's really only 2 episodes that I just didn't care for that much. And even like I was gonna say, episode 5, the Seagate. I felt like it really dragged, although that's also the episode where Seahawk is introduced, and I thought he was a pretty fun character.
See, yeah, I can't hate that episode because Mermista is played by someone who was in Crazy Ex-Girlfriend.
Okay.
What is her name? Let me find it. I'm gonna find it. Vella Lavelle. She plays Heather on Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, and she's basically doing the same thing, but for this character. So I was basically watching Heather, the carefree mermaid princess, and that was just hilarious to me, and it never stopped being hilarious to me. So I enjoyed that episode.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, if we're looking through it, like, so at episode 4 is when we start our Princess of the Week, right?
Yeah.
Because we do Flowers for She-Ra, the Seagate, System Failure. Then we kind of do some different things.
Yeah.
So because
there's the one where they decide she needs to learn how to relax, which it's funny because that seems like a classic filler episode where it's like, oh, you're too stressed out, we need to go relax and have a side quest. But actually, I thought that episode was fine, honestly. The Princess Prom was a fun episode. I liked it a lot, actually.
Yeah, I think that's the turn moment of the season, I think.
Yeah. No Princess Left Behind was a good episode. I feel like episodes like 10 through 13 maybe could have been like squished down to.
Man, 10 and 11 were my favorite episodes in the season. Yeah, especially like 11. That's my shit right there. Like the Adora Katra.
Yeah.
Story.
That one was great.
I loved that one.
I'm almost, the reason I'm going through this exercise right now is I'm like, what is my complaint? It's almost like I think maybe like some of the B plots of the episodes I was not into, and thus it affected my overall sense of being into the show.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
But like it's possible that I just care much more about Adora than I care about whoever the B plot of the episode is going to be. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, like I felt like the first part and the last part of the season were the best. The first part being her conversion over to the good side, the last part being everything having to do with, I don't know, just there's a lot of stuff going on. It was good. Yeah, it's pretty good overall. I'm gonna tone down my criticism a little bit because.
Yeah, I mean, so I guess that leads me to my next question, which is, are you going to watch more of this?
Well, there's a decent chance I will, because I think that my kids would actually enjoy this. And due to scheduling, I actually watched the entire season without them. I think I would have preferred to watch it with them, or at least some of it with them, because I suspected they would have liked it, but it just didn't work out that way. But I think they'd like this. And so if I do watch more of it, it'll probably be because I'm watching it with them. But if they don't want to watch it, then I'm probably not going to watch the second season.
Makes sense. I think I'm going to do it. I mean, I'm looking at it right now, and the second season and the third season kind of look like it was one season chopped in half. Because the first season's 13 episodes, season 2 is 7 episodes, and season 3 is 6 episodes. And then 4, which just came out, I think 2 days ago, is back to 13. So I don't know what's going on with that. But yeah, look, man, I am so busy, and half-hour TV shows are my jam. Because like you could just get in and get out. That's my shit right there. And I appreciate this being a get in and get out type of show.
Yeah. I mean, I liked it a lot, and I think I recommend it. Like if you think it sounds good from our description and you're not completely spoiled on it, then I think people would enjoy it in general.
Yeah, I would give it a shot. I mean, especially like we compared it to Avatar a lot, and yes, Avatar is a better show. Again, that's not fair. But if you're looking for something that gives you that same kind of feeling, I think this has it. I really do.
Yeah, I kept thinking like this action doesn't really compare to that final Agni Kai, and then I'm like, nothing I've ever seen compares to that final Agni Kai. So yeah.
And I'm very sold on the characters, and I think that's one of the, I almost wish we could have done more seasons. And I think I was talking with Kyakan about maybe also having us do season 2, but apparently, and looking at these number of episodes, I kind of understand why now, because I think season 2 is basically a cliffhanger, and they basically just divided a season in half.
I see.
So if we were going to do season 2, we really would also need to do season 3, and that we just wouldn't have been able to fit that in time, so we couldn't do that. But I'm really into where the characters are going. I'm really into what they're going to do with them and how they're going to change. Like the first season of a show has a lot of work to do in that regard. And I think that's why I tend to enjoy the last episodes of a season, a first season the most, because by the time you've gotten a dozen episodes under your belt, you've kind of found your rhythm, you've figured out your characters a little bit more, and you've established them, and now you're starting to push them, right? Like in the long form multi-season storytelling arc, you establish and then start to change, and it is not until those last few episodes that you start to really push those characters along their arc. And that's what we're seeing at the end of the season with Katara. We're seeing her kind of reject her friend and really push herself deeper into the Horde stuff than ever before, almost to make a point where like she's pushing herself down the dark path, specifically to be against Adora, and that is really interesting.
Yeah,
and I want to see where that goes.
Yeah, I loved all the stuff where she keeps getting promoted, and you're like, oh no.
Right.
Yeah, that was great. I think like you and I usually enjoy things for similar reasons, but I think one area that I tend to enjoy more than you, generally speaking, is like sci-fi backstory shit. And and for me, I'm totally into the characters, and I would love to see where the characters go. But one thing that I'm really curious about is where were they going with this backstory, with the computer system and the planet control system, and what is She-Ra really, and why is the planet in this whatever it is, what's going on here? Like that, these are questions where I'm like, I really want to know. You've successfully hooked me on these mysteries show. So
yeah, I think it is so fascinating. The little like, we tend to like the same things, but yeah, the little differences, because that stuff doesn't interest me that much. The thing that interests me most about the what is She-Ra question is, are we going to explore the line a little bit more, and like, because basically we know that the last She-Ra went a little crazy, and something happened, and she broke the line until this moment. And so what happened to restore the line, and how is that going to reflect on Adora's journey through the show?
Yeah.
And that's what I'm interested in. So
yeah, me too.
But that is season 1 of She-Ra, unless you had anything else to talk about. Yeah, I mean, I was pleasantly surprised. I really was. I was kind of like, Kyakan gave this to us, and I was like, okay, I trust you, Kyakan, but this doesn't seem like it's for me. I guess let's conclude on that, because that's a conversation I wanted to have with you generally about conceptually the idea of enjoying a thing that is not quote unquote for you.
Sure.
And I think that's something that like I've very much experienced my entire life, kind of, because Buffy the Vampire Slayer is my favorite show. That show is not quote unquote for me. The target demographic of that show is a teenage girl. That is just factually true. Like that was the audience they were going for, was a teenage girl. And I loved that show. I adored that show. And so I think thinking about this conceptually about like, well, what is it in a thing that isn't for you causes you to attach to it anyway? And I think it drills down to just the concept of well-drawn characters, and this idea of, yes, this character is not meant to appeal to me, but they're created so thoroughly that I find something to attach to anyway. Like I don't
Yeah.
relate to the early arc of Buffy the Vampire Slayer is a teenage girl trying to go through high school, and it's like it's the metaphor is high school is hell, and that comes literal. I don't relate to that at all, but she's also a character struggling with growing up and relationships and difficulties in friendships and the idea of responsibility, and like there's all these things that can relate to you even if the target demographic doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, I think good storytelling universalizes the specifics, where everyone can relate to feelings of alienation and struggle and being out of place regardless of who you are. So yeah.
And I think one of the most fascinating seeming contradictions of storytelling is the more specific you are, the more universal it becomes.
Yeah, because it's honest.
Right. And I think that's fascinating. I mean, I was just listening to an interview with Bong Joon-ho, who's a Korean director that did the movie Parasite this year. And it's one of my favorite movies of the year, if not my favorite movie of the year. And he said he built this movie to specifically relate to class struggles in South Korea. That was like, he built it around this very specific thing, and then he's bringing this movie everywhere in the world, and everyone's telling him how much they relate to this, how much this ties directly to the things they're going through, the concerns they have, the struggles they experience through their daily lives, and that is just a general truism of story that you know, find your thing and don't try to be broadly appealing. If you are specific, if you take this one thing and do this one thing, people will find it if you do it well, and they will find a way to relate to it.
Yeah, I think you're spot on there. I think it's about storytelling fundamentals and fundamental of character, really. And if you get that right, if you really understand storytelling, then you can make even a cartoon about She-Ra connect for anyone, really.
Yeah, you can make a 34-year-old man enjoy a cartoon where the final moment of the last season is a bunch of girls standing around each other and making a rainbow.
Yeah, where there's a flying rainbow Pegasus who can talk.
Oh my God, we didn't even talk about the talking rainbow Pegasus. Best fucking character
it was
ever.
It was pretty genuinely funny how she turns him into a flying Pegasus and he just like runs away screaming because of the existential horror. Yeah. And then like just a few episodes later just comes back and he's like, yeah, I can talk now. It's cool.
Yeah, they didn't set that up at all. It's just true.
Yeah.
Except for the one moment where he says Horsey is a stupid name. His name is Swiftwind.
Yeah. I like that character also. I mean, I just a final comment on your thread about things being for you. Like I don't even know what is for me anymore. Like so many of the things that come out these days, I'm like that does seem like it should be for me, but it just doesn't look good. I don't know what that means or if it means anything, but like there was definitely a time when I would have definitely gone out to see Terminator 6 or whatever it is.
Right. And I think there was a time that I think you would admit this, that we would have looked at this and scoffed at it and at the idea this girly show. Pff.
Yeah.
And I only bring this up because I think there's so much talk about, especially, and I think a lot of these arguments are just being uncharitable and false, but this idea of like, this idea of trying to bring new people into storytelling and how the traditionally powerful people are like upset, like that these traditionally, like, I'll just say these traditionally white male storytelling thing, like the protagonist being a white dude, is the common structure for how storytelling has been in our country for a very long time. And that is changing. And there's a lot of people that are making the argument that this is alienating them from culture, in that how am I supposed to relate to this? And I reject that argument fundamentally, right? And I don't even think the argument is being made in good faith, but just even if it is being made in good faith, I reject the idea that if this is a story with a woman or a black man or something, that you can't relate to it anymore. It just strikes me as just like obviously false.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a horrifying thing to even insinuate. There's so much to relate to in both Adora and Catra. You know, that's what's cool about it, actually.
Absolutely, 100%. Like, I think most people have been in that situation. Like, the idea of having a friend who's just kind of better than you at everything, is just something that I think we've all experienced at some point or other.
Yeah, the resentment or even the feeling of being better than your friend at something and having them resent you for it, and you being like, well, I can't help who I am. You know, like everybody has bits and pieces of these things. Yeah, and I just don't. I don't know. I
honestly think those arguments are literally just made in bad faith. But I think one of the things you can do is, at least, even if your argument is being in bad faith, I'm still going to refute it on its own term, and it's still wrong. Right. So,
and also, like, you can't do fun and new things like having a princess ball if it's a white man, you know, He-Man type character.
Right. I mean, I think in the original story, He-Man was a pretty integral part of this whole thing. Mm-hmm. And one thing the show has said, at least, and I don't know, we haven't seen any of the other seasons, but I did read that at least through the first 3 seasons, they were not going to have He-Man as a character in the show because they didn't want anything to take away from Adora's journey. They didn't want anything to kind of suck attention from her. And He-Man is a more well-known character. I'm assuming. I think so.
In theory,
because I knew who He-Man was and I didn't know who She-Ra was. Yeah. That's my anecdotal basis of assumption. But so they didn't want that, and I think that's smart. And I mean, you could bring that character in eventually, but
I bet they will actually. But and I'm sure they'll do some interesting and fresh take on it too.
Sure. All right, that is She-Ra. All 4 seasons are available on Netflix right now. So if you haven't seen it, we recommend it. Stamp of approval.
Yeah.
We need like a doof stamp where we just stamp
doof. Yeah. We do. It's a good idea.
Doof. All right. Before we go, I just wanted to talk to you a little bit, Matt, because last weekend Apple TV Plus came out, and I, for whatever reason, said I'm going to watch all 4 of the shows that came out on Friday. I only watched the pilot of each because I don't have that much time. But here's what I'll say up front. I'm glad I'm not paying for this service because the service is free for a year if you buy any Apple product after, I think it was like September 10th or something. And I did get one of the new phones because it was time to upgrade my phone. Hadn't got a phone in a few years. So I got this for free, and they actually made it really easy because I literally just opened the app on my phone and they said, do you want this free for a year? And I just clicked a button and it's done. Nice. So Apple made it easy. But so I watched 4 shows, and I'm just going to talk about it a little bit. So first up, we have C. Do you know which one this is, Matt?
I'm looking at all these names, and none of them are familiar to me at all.
All right. C stars Khal Drogo, Jason Momoa, and who else is in it? I can't remember who else is in it. That's not a good sign. But it is a Stephen Knight production. Basically, the concept of the show is that it's like post-apocalyptic Earth where the human race has lost their vision. Everyone is blind, and then Jason Momoa has twins, and they can see. And that's the concept. And nothing in this pilot really hooked me. I watched this a week ago, and I'm struggling to remember what happened. It is just very like samey in the same kind of like post-apocalyptic like thing. Like it's, I don't know. It is not very interesting to me. Like I can't really tell where it's going. I don't know what they're going to do with it. Maybe it'll be interesting, but There's nothing here, man. I don't even know what else to say.
That's really interesting because the premise sounds kind of cool, actually. But I totally believe you that the execution sounds like the execution was lackluster if you can't remember what happened. So I will pass on that one then.
The next one is a show called For All Mankind, and this is a Ronald D. Moore production. That's an alt history space exploration show, which should be right up my fucking alley. Ronald Moore, alt history space. The concept of this is basically and the opening of the first episode is the Russians beat the United States to the moon. They landed on the moon first. The Soviet Union landed on the moon first, and then what happens next? So what happens if the space race like continues because we lost this battle? And that's a really cool idea. And like the concept of basically the first episode is everyone, our main characters at NASA, reeling from that revelation. And they did it in this really cool way. Like the one thing I did really enjoy about the episode is, and if I walked into this blindly and didn't know what it was about, it's really cool because like they're showing all these people gathered around TVs in bars at home everywhere, gathered around to watch the moon landing. And then like there's this slow reveal that this is an hour moon landing. The one of the brilliant ways they do it is after they do the households in the bars, they go to NASA and they show a shot of NASA, and it's like the NASA control room. And instead of everyone sitting there like hard at work communicating in a way you think they would, they're all just like silently watching TV. And then you realize something's wrong, and then a man steps off the lunar lander and then starts speaking Russian, and then you realize what's going on. And of course, I knew the concept, but if I hadn't known the concept, that would have been when you build a story, you can't assume that everyone's read about the concept. So it was a really cool way of doing that.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds like a great idea for like a short story or like a particular scene, but I can imagine having trouble hanging a whole show on that unless you have some really good characters.
Yeah, and that's the problem, is none of the characters really hooked me at all. They're just kind of flat, and I didn't find them all that interesting. And that I don't see myself going back to the show and finding out what happens next. And I really feel like I should want to do that, and I just don't. Yeah,
I mean, if you're not hooked, you're not hooked, and I think it's pretty valid to judge a show based on its pilot. Like it's kind of like this is the thing you had the most time and incentive to polish and get right, and if you didn't hook me with it, then good luck.
The point of the pilot is to hook you. That is its goal.
Yeah.
The next one I watched is a show called Dickinson, which is so it's basically like they took Emily Dickinson and they put her on the CW. It's like Riverdale, but with Emily Dickinson. And that concept is like amazing. I think it's hilarious. And then it's just like, I don't know if it's pulling it off. Like Haley Steinfeld is the lead here, and I love her. She's so great, and she's good in this too. But it's very confused to me because like it's so weird to do this kind of like female empowerment story with Emily Dickinson because she was like famously like a recluse. Like she spent the last years of her life like not leaving her house, and so it's just like. I don't know. I don't know. Like she was never valued in her time. So like the idea of like this, I'm looking at the Wikipedia entry and it's like one woman's fight to get her voice heard. And I'm like, yeah, but we know how that ends. And like, it's not till like, it's a while after she's dead. So like, I don't know. Like it's very, like conceptually, it's very funny. Like she talks like it's 2019, like everyone's dressed in period, everything's period, except like, almost only Haley Steinfeld is talking like it's 2019, and that's kind of funny on its own right. I just don't think it's funny enough to carry 10 episodes of a show. It just kind of wears off on you.
Yeah, it's funny how a lot of these things I'm like, yeah, it sounds like a good SNL skit, but not a TV show.
Yeah. So that is Dickinson. HBO. Apple TV Plus is doing like the Hulu model of streaming where like they'll play the first couple episodes and then they'll start doing week by week. except for this. They released all 10 episodes up front on the show, but I only watched the first one.
Okay.
And I just don't know if I'm going to go back either. These first two are directed by David Gordon Green, who is a director I really like. He did last year's Halloween, and he's done a lot of the Seth Rogen comedies with Seth Rogen. So I don't know. I expected to like this more, but here we are.
All right. So that so far we're down on 3 out of 4. So
yep. And then the last one is the most expensive television show ever produced, and it's a show about a morning show.
Okay.
This is their big flagship show of this the platform, because it is Jennifer Aniston, Reese Witherspoon, Steve Carell, and this is a show, Matt, that so wants to be an Aaron Sorkin show. Like the way they shoot it, the way it's written, everything about the show is like desperate to be Aaron Sorkin. But it's not. It's not Aaron Sorkin, and you can feel that in every bit of it. It's so weird that, like, this talent, Jennifer Aniston, I love Jennifer Aniston, I love Reese Witherspoon. I don't know what's going on. It's such a weird show. It's so weird to me.
That doesn't sound fun. I mean, it's funny because I can kind of imagine what you're saying, but also not really, because that seems like it could go wrong in all kinds of ways. So it's about the making of a morning show, basically.
Yeah, it's so the idea is Jennifer Aniston is one of 2 regular guests on a morning show with Steve Carell and her have been like partners on this morning show, basically Good Morning America, basically. And they've been partners on the show for like 20 years. And then Steve Carell's character gets Me Too'd and then fired. And Jennifer Aniston's character is basically left in the lurch. And then they find this like young, like speaks her mind journalist played by Reese Witherspoon to replace Steve Carell's character on the morning show. And that's basically the beginning, and so it's like them dealing with that while also trying to create this morning show. And it's just it's very preachy in some ways, like Sorkin can be preachy, right? But I think he writes it so well that you don't mind it. And so it's like that, except you're listening to Reese Witherspoon like preach on about like the importance of journalism, and it's just like it's just kind of annoying.
Yeah.
And it's basically trying to do a Matt Lauer thing, right?
Right.
I mean, that's who Steve Carell's character is doing. But it's like, so it's kind of weird how it's like trying to do this like dark tone with that, but it's also trying to be funny in some ways. And it's apparently they like this has been production for a while, and the Matt Lauer, of it all was added fairly late in production. And I think you can tell. It's like you can tell that was like a shift in what the show was supposed to be about, because the tone of the show doesn't match the tone of that.
Yeah, that feels kind of gross.
Yeah, it's like this Frankenstein of a show, but like they're paying Jennifer Aniston and Reese Witherspoon so much money.
Yeah.
I don't know. They've already greenlit this for season 2, so there's gonna be more of this. And it's just not doing anything for me. We're 0 for 4 here, Matt.
Yeah.
Like none of these shows I'm gonna keep watching.
I kind of want to say that feels like if they made that O.J. Simpson show in like 1995 instead of, the 2010s.
Yeah, that's true. That is true.
It's just like that's a little too topical and, showing off
and casting Steve Carell in a role like that is a weird choice to me, because he's so inherently likable. And so like the show is playing off his likability, but also he's done like sexual misconduct stuff. Like he's supposed to be Matt Lauer-ish. So it feels kind of weird that like with that, like, and I think maybe that's because they cast him before they decided to do this. And
seems weird.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just weird. It's just a weird show.
I wonder if they're going to explore like a redemption arc, if you will, for.
Oh gosh, yeah.
I mean,
don't know.
it reminds me a bit of. I don't want to just like spoil everything in the world, but it reminds me a bit of a certain aspect of The Boys, where there's a particular character who the show sort of tries to find some redemption for in a way that I didn't really expect.
Yeah, and I didn't like it. That's the part I liked about the show the least.
Yeah, well, I think where they leave it off, well, whatever. I don't want to talk. I don't want to spoil that.
We're going to do an episode about The Boys one day.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about that then. Yeah. So that's where we're at, and it's weird because if I had paid money for this, I'd probably be pretty annoyed, but I didn't. So I'm just like, it's fine. I'm fine saying goodbye to all 4 of these shows. And that's kind of the weird thing about what Apple's doing here, Matt, is their service doesn't have anything else, right? Like, unlike any of the other services, they have no back catalog. Disney has the biggest back catalog ever. Netflix has got their stuff. Hulu's got a bunch. Hulu's got the live TV angle. Even the HBO Max thing is like building this back catalog. And Apple seems entirely uninterested in doing that. And they've got more shows coming. The end of the month has the M. Night Shyamalan show coming out, which a trailer came out for this week and looks incredible. I am so excited about this. But I don't know if that's enough. And I don't know what they're doing. I don't know what they're doing with this, because like obviously they're giving it away. Basically, like you buy any Apple product and you get this for a year. So like they're not going to make any money off of this service for the first year. Absolutely not. They're going to lose probably a lot of money.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like they have like $1 trillion literally, and they're just like, we need to spend this money.
Yeah, but what's their 5-year plan with this? Like, do they want to be better than Netflix? Like, my understanding is Apple has kind of realized that the market for their phones is pretty saturated. Everyone has a cell phone, and people are going to replace their phones. But are you going to really experience growth in that market anymore? No, probably not. So they're switching to being like a service company. So they're going to offer the Apple Music, they're going to offer the news, the arcade, and this is part of that model. But I just don't know in the world of TV, like in the world of music, they were the dominant digital music people for a decade. So the pivot to doing a subscription-based service for music made logical sense. And you retain people like me who have been listening to iTunes for the entirety of my adult life and want the ease of continuing to do that. So yeah, I'll sign up for Apple Music. In the world of TV, there's none of that. And there are so many other competitors with so much other stuff that all you have to rely on is the stuff that you're releasing and creating right now. You have no backlog to fall on. I don't know, man. I just don't know. I don't get it. That's my biggest thing. I don't get it.
I don't get it either. And honestly, I mean, back in the day, like Steve Jobs at the helm, he could kind of call a shot in a way that in retrospect, you're like, wow, he saw certain trends. He saw where certain things were going to go, and he foresaw a need, and he made it happen, and he changed whole industries like one after another. But I don't think that vision is there anymore. I think this is more. I think this is literally capital utilization. And maybe some element of like, well, we have to get into this market, and then everyone at the table being like, yeah, we do have to get into this market, but we don't really want to commit to this market. Like, we don't want to spend more than we need to, so let's just make kind of a token commitment where we throw out some new shows, we see how it goes, and then we kind of grow slowly. Like, I guess that's maybe if I'm going to make a prediction, I would predict like from here we see them kind of grow the platform slowly, in a way where, you know, you ask about a 5-year plan. Like in 5 years, there's a bunch more shows. They've maybe had a couple of big hits in there, a couple of like, maybe not Game of Thrones level because that was kind of a unique thing, but like, you know, big, like, oh yeah, that show that was a really great show, everybody should see that show, and then people get their Apple Plus subscription just for that one show, you know, and then you're in the door, and then you're in their walled garden, and they I don't really know though, because the walled garden thing really doesn't apply to TV. I don't see how they can make that work.
Yeah, I don't either. I don't know. It's so weird. Disney Plus comes out in 5 days. So good luck, Apple.
Yeah, right.
All right. Well, that is all I had on Apple TV Plus. We will probably circle back around to that Shyamalan show. I don't know if we're going to do a deconstructing episode on it because we didn't do it on the Wachowski show, so that doesn't feel fair. But I'll probably talk about it in some way.
Okay.
But that is it for this week. If you have any opinions on She-Ra season 1, please don't send us spoilers about the other seasons. But season 1, or on any of these Apple TV shows, did you guys watch any of these shows? Did you like any of them? I think the closest one I came to liking was Dickinson. So let me know what you guys thought. You can reach out to us via email at doofmedia@gmail.com or over on our Twitter account at doofmedia.
Yeah, and if you're not already subscribed to this podcast, we encourage you to do so and ensure you never miss an episode. You can find it on iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, Google Play, and pretty much anywhere else podcasts can be found.
And you can find this and all of our other shows at our website, doofmedia.com. That's where you'll find like 8 shows we do, like 8 whole shows or something like that. I can't keep track.
It's on the order of 8, yeah.
There's a whole bunch, and they're all great. So head on over to doofmedia.com/podcast and see each and everything we do. And subscribe to that stuff. And if you want to support us, consider becoming a patron of Doof Media. Head on over to patreon.com and pledge $1 a month or whatever else you can afford to help ensure we keep making new stuff, keep those lights on, keep those mics charged. Special thanks to patron Kyakan. Kyakan was one of our earliest patrons and has remained a patron through, it's been like 2 years now, right, Matt? Something ridiculous like that. So.
Yeah, something amazing. We really appreciate Kyakan. Kyakan has actually gone above and beyond in several ways. They keep up our list of threads for the Ward podcast.
Yeah. So we appreciate you forcing us to watch the show, Kyakan, that we ended up really enjoying. So hopefully we did it justice. And thank you for your support, and thank everyone for their support.
Yeah. Also, please consider rating and reviewing this show on Apple Podcasts. Every review helps us get more exposure and introduces new folks to the content that we make here.
All right, guys. We'll see you all next week where we're back to Shyamalan, and this time it's Split. I'm excited.
My name is Doof, and you'll do what I say. My name is Doof, and you'll do what I say.